the height of the Bush torture program at GITMO. Could Ron DeSantis, the far-right officer who just 2 years prior was teaching high schoolers to sympathize with the slaveocracy and today speaks at events for anti-Muslim hate groups, could someone like him actually have been some kind of protector of detainee human rights, and at a time when illegal torture was actually the policy at the torture camp? Until now, nothing was really known about what DeSantis did for the 10 months he was at the island prison, other than those statements from former colleagues. I knew there had to be more to the story, so on November 17th, I called Mansour Adaifi, known to DeSantis as Detainee 441. Mansour, sold to the U.S. by Afghan warlords after 9/11, was a totally innocent teenager, held at Guantanamo Bay from 2002 until 2016, so he has a robust knowledge of life and torture at GITMO. He told me that not only was DeSantis there for what he called the worst year of his entire imprisonment, but DeSantis was a notorious figure who didn't just know about, but observed and participated in illegal acts of torture and in fact seemed to take great pleasure in their suffering. He reveals that the job of DeSantis was not to ensure human rights were respected, but to ensure that they were violated to the worst degree. Just a warning, the following interview contains some graphic descriptions of torture.
Guantanamo, Mike, it was created out of the legal zone, out of the legal system, out of the humanity, basically. Torture was the mechanism of Guantanamo. Torture, abuse, and experimenting on prisoners at Guantanamo. We went on a massive hunger strike in 2005, and was like over 500 prisoners participated in the hunger strike. And at that time, the only way to calm us down were they told us, okay, we are going to talk to listen to your need. We believed them that they would negotiate and talk to us. And we told them that's what we need, But it was a trap, basically. It was a trap. I mean, everything turned upside down. So we went again on hunger strike. We were on force feeding. It was torture. We were bleeding all the time. And I saw a fucking handsome person who was coming. He said, I'm here to ensure that you're treating humanely. And we said, okay, this is our demand. We were not asking for much, At the beginning, he was just...
It was Ron DeSantis.
Yes, exactly. The person.
He said, I'm here to ensure you're being treated humanely.
Yes, exactly. And if you have any problems, if you have any concerns, just talk to me. And, we were drowning in that place. I'm like, oh, this is cool. That person actually writing something, he will raise the concerns, but it was piece of the game. What they were doing, they were looking what's hurt you more to use it against you. By the end of 2005, 2006, when he was there, one of the worst time at Guantanamo, literally. The group who was in the administration, the interrogators, the guards, the administration, all of them were the worst. And they cracked on us so hard when they came to break our hunger strike, when we went again on force feeding. A team came to us, a general, the head of the team. He was a general, and he said, we were on hunger strike, and he said, the first day, he said, I am here. I have a job. I was sent here to break your fucking hunger strike. I do not care why you're here. I don't care who you are. My job, sir, here to make you eat. Today we are talking. Tomorrow there will be no talking. The second day, I swear by my God, Mike, they brought piles of Ensure, and they start force feeding us over and over again.
For those who don't know, Ensure is a thick, milky nutritional shake mainly marketed on daytime television to elderly people. I've had them and they are very hard to drink.
Yes, and Ron DeSantis was there and watching us. We were crying, screaming. We were tied to the feeding chair, and that guy, he was watching that, he was laughing basically. When they used to feed us, because our stomach cannot hold this amount of Ensure. They used to pour Ensure one can after another. So when he approached me, I said, this is the way we are treated. You should start to eat. I threw up in his face, literally on his face.
Ron DeSantis.
On his face, yeah.
Mansour vomiting on DeSantis' face in a desperate cry for help was well-deserved. The JAG lawyer would have been well aware at the time that this was indeed a violation of international law, in particular, Common Article 3, which we reviewed earlier. There's no question that it was torture, and the UN Human Rights Commission further clarified that it regarded the force feeding at Guantanamo Bay as a form of torture. The World Medical Association also specifically prohibited force feeding in its Declaration of Tokyo in 1975.
They used to restrain us in the feeding chair, which like 8 point. They tied our heads, our shoulder, our wrist, our thighs, and our legs. And they came, and that was really thick tube. They call it French 17 or something through our nose. And they keep doing this over and over again, and they put some kind laxative in the feeding liquid, with like we shit in ourselves all the time. Then we would be moved to a solitary confinement, really cold cells. If we throw up, and like we used to get fed like 5 times a day. It wasn't feeding. It was torture. So we couldn't handle it for 5 days. We couldn't, because 5 times a day, you can't. You cannot possibly handle it, because they just kept pouring the ensure. And in 1 week, they break all the hunger strikers. In 1 week, totally. It was a mission. And he was there. All of them was watching, the colonel, officers, doctors, nurses. And not just that, they used to also beat us. And if we scream or pain, bleeding came off on our nose and mouth, they would like, eat. The only word they told you, eat, eat, eat. We were beating all day long, all day. There's a team. Whatever you do, they just beat you. Pepper spray, beating, sleep deprivation, that continued for 3 months. And he was there because at the beginning, he told us that he was there to ensure we are treated humanely. And if we have concern or issues, he will take it. But he's one of the people who actually survived the torture, the abuses, the beating all the time at Guantanamo.
So Ron DeSantis, he wasn't just there as like a lawyer that you could go to. He was actually supervising torture, beatings, and he was supervising these force feedings of you and others.
Ron DeSantis was there all the time because his job to walk around and talk to prisoners in the camp. That was his job, because to report, like, I'm here to ensure you're being treated humanely. I'm telling Americans, if this is humanity, this guy is torture, is a criminal. So when someone come to talk to us, like, I'm trying to help you, and we are complaining, because we thought, okay, that's my work. Then when we saw him there, I told her when he came to approach me when I'm first feeding, like, asked us to eat, he says, better to eat. And he was laughing. So I guess I threw up in his face. And he was there to ensure we were treating humanely.
And you say that while Ron DeSantis was observing you were strapped to a chair, they were pouring can after can of Ensure down a tube through your nose. You were obviously in distress, right? At the time, it was obvious to Ron DeSantis that you were in pain. And you say that he was actually laughing during this procedure?
Yes, like, they were asking us to eat because they took our hunger strike as a challenge, and they want to break it because when he was there, they were looking at us and laughing because also we were shitting in ourselves, and he was laughing because when I was like screaming and yelling, because when your stomach full of Ensure, you couldn't breathe, and you throw up at the same time. Also, there was bleeding coming of my nose because the tube they brought, really thick tube. It's not like the regular one. At the beginning, they brought small one. Then they brought really big one, had like piece of metal in the end. It was hurt like hell. And I was screaming, like, when I was screaming, I look at him, and he was actually smiling, like, as someone who enjoying it. When he come close, I just throw up in his face because I was throwing up all the way. And I get punished. They took my clothes after they. Yeah, this is the memory of this person. When I shared his photo with the brothers, we have WhatsApp group former Guantanamo prisoners. And like all of the start cursing him. This is one of the worst people. One of the things that hurt us when someone can tell you that I'm here to help you. I'm here to ensure that you treated humanely. And when he turned against us, when he turned his face, his true face, it was a shock to us all because he used to talk to the prisoners. He has like a notebook and would ask the prisoners, and you have any problems, how we can help you, how the guards treated you. And like, wow, thanks. And everything we told him were turned against us.
So you're saying that DeSantis initially, because he presented himself as the lawyer whose job it was to ensure you're being treated humanely, then you and other detainees told him the things that were the hardest for you to deal with, the things that you felt needed to change. And then instead of actually making sure those things changed and that your human rights are respected, he then basically was gathering intelligence to then tell the prison camp and the interrogators what it was that was impacting you most so they could do it more to you.
Exactly, that what happened there, because the things we used to tell them, it turned against us. You know, I remember when we were talking about the noise at the night, when we're talking about like the vacuums, the generators, the fans, and everything, and they brought more and more stuff.
You told DeSantis, that was one of your complaints to DeSantis, is that how they were sleep depriving you by causing so much intentional noise throughout the night. You told DeSantis this, and then they increased the noise?
They increased the noise, and also when the food, for example, my brother used to tell him, okay, please, we don't eat meat because we want to trace it's halal or not. What the guard did after that, they used to mix all the food with meat so that you cannot eat.
And that's another thing that you told DeSantis was a problem, and then they did it again.
It's not just that. Also, the medicine, clothing, treatment, sleeping, the desecration for the Quran. Everything we talked to him become multiple, because when I talked to my brother, he said he was looking at the impact on you, what hurt you more. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't tell them nothing, they need to find a way to hurt you, the thing that affect you more. So after that, we knew who he is, basically. And when we were on force feeding and torture, he was laughing. They were smiling and like looking at us like as nothing, as trash.
That's incredible. So if officially his job was to ensure human rights of detainees, but really in reality what he did was exploit your trust in him for that brief moment to then use against you all the human rights violations that were impacting you the most. And so he actually helped increase the torture on you and increase the pain and suffering on you under the guise of he was there to help. Mansour, to wrap up, you told me there was a resistance tactic there of splashing camp administrators, as it was called, which was splashing them with your own feces. But you didn't use this tactic often and reserved it only for the most hated torturers there, the worst of the worst. And you told me earlier that DeSantis was one of those people who got splashed.
Yes, only the worst of the worst. Not anyone gets splashed, no.
So DeSantis got the badge of shame.
I mean, yes.
This conversation with Mansour reveals previously unreported details of Ron DeSantis' opaque role at Guantanamo. While I'm sure a lot of people out there will be happy to learn he has been hit with spit, vomit, and human fecal matter by the people he was hurting, I want to review some of the most important revelations. Ron's position was not some routine one. He didn't just rotate in and take over for some other low-level officer. Until then, no JAG officer had been assigned to such a position. He was brought in during a crisis. The mass protest of around 500 detainees in the form of a hunger strike was a major problem for the prison administrators, and especially for the Bush administration, which was in a legal and political hot seat for the torture camp and the protests. So they brought in a collection of new ruthless individuals to break the strike. Ron DeSantis was one of them. The official job, which I previously referenced, where his superiors described him as the human rights representative for detainees, was actually meant to defeat the hunger strikers. And as you heard, not by actually conforming the conditions to international law, but an undercover assignment for DeSantis to learn the weak points of the protesters and tighten the screws on them. It would be bad enough had DeSantis done these things as an interrogator or as a prison guard, but it makes it just so much more insidious that he was the attorney officially tasked with ensuring human rights. Mansour's description of the DeSantis era being by far the worst period of his entire detainment at Guantanamo is really saying a lot, given it is the most notorious torture camp in the world. In addition,